All right. We are getting started with our dating workshop. Thank you guys for showing up this Saturday morning. What I wanted to do is just kind of have like a candid conversation, specifically between Deborah and I. We're going to share a bit about our past experience. We're going to share some of the biggest dating mistakes that we learned, and just kind of like general ways to honor God when we think about the topic of dating. Um, and if you guys ever have any questions, things you want to bring up, things that you think we should talk about, I put it in a little like Q&A in the link, the chat, and you just have to submit your question whenever you think of it on that chat if you want to talk about it. So both mentors and mentees, if you're interested in talking about a certain topic, just put in the chat. That would be great. Or not in the chat, put in the Q&A link that I put in the chat. Yeah. All right. So I guess I want to start off with just a word of prayer, and then we can go. So God, we give this workshop to you, and we say that you are Lord over our entire lives, and that includes even our romantic relationships. And God, I pray that you would use us as just your mouthpiece to share your wisdom and goodness and love to everyone here today. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. So, yeah, as you guys know, like Deborah and I have had a tumultuous dating history, and it's been, I mean, yeah, we've made a ton of mistakes, and we have gone through a lot of things without much mentorship, without many people older than us that were like looking out for us. And I found that to be like a really detrimental like disadvantage as compared to what many of the younger people here have today. And so I think it's a really good thing that we're doing this. But I guess let's start off, Deborah, in general, like what do you think has been one of the biggest dating mistakes in your history?
So I highlighted two of, I think, my main dating mistakes. I think my first one was with my first boyfriend, my high school boyfriend, and that mistake was staying in a relationship for too long. Staying together with a person when I already knew that either the feelings were gone or that they weren't right for me, but I was like just too afraid of being alone or afraid of the fallout of a breakup to be honest and to actually end the relationship. And so by the time it ended, it had already like dragged on for a really long time, and we both ended up kind of like hurting more, I think, than we would have if we had just ended it when we should have. My second mistake was, I guess my second mistake was with my second boyfriend, with my college boyfriend. And that one was, I guess, one of my more selfish relationships, because I really only cared about how it made me feel. And I consciously ignored a lot of the red flags. And the biggest red flag that I ignored was how my relationship with this person was affecting my relationships with other people in my life. So my relationship with my parents were strained because they didn't really agree with it. Like I never talked to my dad because he didn't like my boyfriend. Like my boyfriend wasn't like the best to my siblings, but I was just like, whatever, he's just treating them like his own siblings, but it wasn't. I stopped hanging out with a lot of my friends because it was kind of awkward. So I almost like isolated myself from other helpful relationships in my life because of this one. So that was a big mistake.
Those are good. Yeah.
What about you?
I mean, mine feels just a little more like, I don't know, like practical. Like there was this opportunity that I had to study abroad in college because my uncle was he was a professor at Korea University, and it's like a pretty prestigious university. And I didn't really want to do it because I was in a relationship with this girl and she was going to be in town all summer and I just wanted to be near her. And so I chose not to go to Korea to get like a free study abroad like education and stick around and
Bum around.
bum around with this girl that I ended up breaking up with, and or that ended up breaking up with me. And so that was like not just because it was like it ended up badly, but even if it didn't end up badly, like I think I was so short-sighted um in what I wanted. I think the like being blinded by man, I just need to be with this girl. I need to be close to her, otherwise I'm not going to be happy. um it prevented me from being able to think reasonably about other situations. If I had someone older than me or like anyone that I really confided in to like tell me, hey, that's a dumb decision, you should actually go to Korea, then I think I would have like snapped out of it. But I didn't really have anyone to do that for me. So um, that was a really big mistake and a big regret that I had in my life. Uh, Man, other than that, like I realized that in my high school, my college relationships, uh, there was this like I wanted to be the best for this girl, and I wanted to improve myself. I wanted to like do all these things, but it was always for the purpose of impressing this girl. Like I would write songs to impress this girl. I would like, do Bible study to impress this girl. And I remember I dated a lot of like non-Christians in high school and beginning of college, but at the end of college, I found like a Christian girlfriend and I was like, oh wow, we're gonna be like super holy. This is totally God honoring, but it was not. And she wanted to do like a couples Devo thing, and I was like, oh yeah, like let's do it because we got to put God first. I was totally doing it for her. Like I wasn't concerned about my relationship with God and whether or not like I was good with Him before even like doing these Devo things. And so um, that was exposed when I realized that I was getting really tired of doing these Devo things, of doing all these things just to like impress this girl. So those things show itself over time and you just may not realize. So man, so many mistakes. That's just a couple of them. You can definitely talk to me if you want to learn more. um, do you want to talk about like why those things happen, why you think you like were put in a place where your relationships got strained or anything like that?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think like for me, my perspective on dating was really influenced by kind of like the purity culture of like the 90s and early 2000s, where there was a lot of shame that surrounded dating around. And there was a lot of like, oh my gosh, like your first boyfriend needs to be your husband. And of course, I'm not saying that you should date around, but I think that pressure made me feel like, well, I made this decision, so I gotta stick with it. And again, not having older people in my life being like, hey, like you can sort of, you have choices, like you can break up with a person if you don't like them as much anymore. But also I think not having um, like I think for me personally, I was in a place in my life where I felt like I had to keep up an image of like, I'm a Christian, I'm a leader, I do all these things well, and I have to, I have people younger than me looking up to me. Um, so I kind of kept everyone at a distance because I had this image to keep up. And then so my college boyfriend sort of became like my escape, where I could be myself, and so because of that split in my mind, um, I felt like, well, he's the only one who really understands me. Like nobody else really cares about me the same way he does. And all of these things, which are lies, begin to seep into me. And therefore, like slowly I became more and more isolated. Um, and then when you're with a person for a long time, especially if you don't have a healthy support network, you know, you don't have anyone to go to when that person disappoints you, when you get into a fight, when all of a sudden he's not there only to like make you happy and he's in a bad mood or whatever. And then you're like, oh wait, now I'm stuck on this island with this guy who's kind of a jerk, and I alienated everyone else because I told myself that he's the only one I need. And so that is sort of a conundrum that I think a lot of people find themselves in, especially in the beginning stages when you're like, man, this person is amazing. You are really all I need. And that's never true. And that's always kind of can lead to some dangerous situations where you're like kind of alone.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. For those guys that joined late, just wanted to put this link there again. If you have any questions, you can put them on there. You can upload the questions you want to talk about. We'll do that at the end of our talk. Second question that I wanted to talk about with Deborah is, what qualities should I look for when dating? And I wanted to put this little twist on it. Qualities not that you're looking for in the other person, but qualities that you should be looking for in yourself. And we wanted that distinction to be clear. So Deborah, why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, so this one's a little bit hard for me to verbalize, but one of the things that I usually tell people about like what should I look for when they're asking me like what should I look for in the other person when I'm dating, how do I know this person's good for me? I usually say like you should have a vague idea that they're moving in the direction in their life that you also want to move into. Or like they're moving in a direction in their life that that seems to align with yours. But in order to know that though, you have to know which direction you're moving into. Like you have to have some big idea of like, what is your purpose in life? Like, what are you here on this earth to accomplish? And it doesn't have to be a 5-year plan, like all laid out, but you need to at least have this sense of like, I want my life to matter in this way. Mm-hmm. With my college boyfriend, whenever we talked about the future, it sounded like he kind of just wanted to graduate college. Like that was like big, just like bare minimum, but he wanted to graduate college. He wanted to maybe move to Indiana and help his family with their like import-export business. He wanted to just get a house, 2.5 kids, and that was it. And then as our relationship kind of started to like deteriorate a little bit towards the end, every time I thought about my future with him, I would freak out. I'd be like, I do not want any of those things. And he didn't really have ministry as like it wasn't like part of his gifting. I mean, it's not like a knock on him, but just like he didn't think about that when he thought about his life purpose, like serving God other than maybe being on the worship team or leading a Bible study here and there. And so I had to kind of come to terms with that, like, okay, we're not moving in the same direction. But I wouldn't know that if I didn't have sort of this like internal like understanding of who I was and what I wanted to do, even if I didn't know exactly what that looked like. Yeah, so if you don't really know, then you'll be like, well, I guess Indiana sounds pretty nice, and there's nothing wrong with a house. Everybody wants a house and kids. And then you'll get swept into this like future that maybe wasn't really meant for you.
Yeah. I remember being younger, like in college, and being like, oh, she's Christian, I'm Christian. We definitely have the same goals and the same purpose, and we're desiring the same thing. It's not the case. Mm-hmm. Like there's so many different avenues in the kingdom where you can be serving as a couple. And if you are kind of like very different, if one wants to go on overseas missions and the other one just wants to stay local, if one is very active in the church while one just likes to be a passive, like those, you'll find that conflict once again over time. Mm-hmm. You'll find that it kind of creates this rift that's pretty hard to get over. And so Yeah, that's a very good.
Or you'll just end up doing a lot of things on your own.
Mm.
Um, and then the other person is just like, you just don't get to share in that part of your life together. Like,
Yeah.
which is fine, but also
Yeah.
it's a sacrifice. Yeah.
For myself, I think with I try to steer people away from like, stop looking for someone that's funny and nice and buys you nice things. Like, you want to improve yourself, become someone that's worth dating, um, and people will come. Like, it's not like not that you should be doing it just so that people will come, but like improving yourself, working on yourself um, is the primary goal. Being well-rounded, I would say, like just basic like emotional intelligence, knowing how to identify your own feelings when you're feeling them, knowing if you're feeling angry, sad, anxious, why are you feeling those things. um, if you are able to understand for yourself why you feel those things, you're able to like put it into words, you're able to describe it to people. um, you will be able to better navigate the labyrinth that is relationships. Because if you can't even like go around and understand yourself, how are you supposed to understand when your significant other is going through something that you know they can't explain well, or like some sort of conflict between you two? Like, you need to be able to explore that labyrinth yourself before you talk about joining with someone else's labyrinth. um Another thing that's like part of that is just like, no, don't have any skeleton closets. Don't hide anything from yourself, or and eventually with like you being able to be comfortable enough to talk about things with your significant other. Like, if you have things that you just do not want to talk about, you know they're painful, you know that it brings up bad memories and all that, and you haven't processed it, like those things are going to come up eventually. And so it's either you do it yourself, with help. Maybe it's a therapist, maybe it's with close friends, maybe it's with church members, your mentors. um, do it. Otherwise your significant other is going to bring it out of you in a bad way. And so these kinds of elements of emotional intelligence, like I think you kind of have to work on in yourself. Like I have books and books of journals that I've just had to like over the years, that I just had to understand and grow in myself. And not just journals, but like, you know, Devo books, and, things that help me like explore myself and explore who I am in God. So those are that emotional intelligence is just it's a huge, huge thing. If you don't want to get better at this, you're probably not going to be very successful in any dating relationship. um, And then just like one real practical thing, like what should I be building up in myself when dating? Man, just get good at asking follow-up questions. In our marriage group, we've been talking about 21 questions, and how that's just a game of just constantly asking questions, follow up, trying to go deeper. And I think that's a very simple, basic, good way to just be mindful and interested in the other person in front of you. If you're able to find interest in the person in front of you, you'll realize that you'll grow to like that person even more. If you can only talk about yourself, if they are talking about a story and you're just like, yeah, well, I did this and this is when I did, like just bringing the conversation back to yourself all the time, you're never going to get deep with this person. You're never going to explore just how wonderful that person is if you are unable to navigate that. So being able to ask follow-up questions, being able to be interested in just what that person's saying, how they're feeling, what's going on, without talking about yourself, that will lead you to just being a better friend, a good listener. And I think that'll help a lot. All right. Now the last question, which is, how do I honor God if I start dating?
My answer is pretty simple. My answer is, don't be afraid to ask God for his opinion on this person that you're dating. I speak from personal experience that a lot of my prayers when I was dating in high school and in college were like, God, help us to put you first. Help us to honor you with this relationship. Help us to blah, blah, blah. Like all the stuff I thought I was supposed to pray. But I never prayed like, hey, God, like, should I be dating this person? Or should I, is this person good for me? Is this in your will? Are you happy? I just kind of avoided that because I didn't really want to hear the answer. And because I think if your relationship with God is, if you have a relationship with God, if you seek him, if you really love him, he will let you know. Like you feel it in your heart, you feel the peace versus the unsettling, like, okay, I'm pretty sure this is not right, but I can't, or I think I can't, do the right thing. So I'm just going to keep going and pray that God improves this relationship rather than, just being obedient to the Holy Spirit and to your conviction. So, yeah, I think I could have avoided a lot of heartache if I just like did that from the start, before I got too emotionally attached, before my brain did all sorts of things to help to make me rationalize the relationship. If I had just been like, yes or no, Lord? No? Okay, move on. So.
Yeah, that's good. You want to be like able to ask those questions. And, that assumes kind of like a relationship with God that's like deep enough to where you can say those things.
And this is kind of to answer, like, if someone is like, I'm going to start dating people in general, or like, I think I'm ready to, start to open that part of me up. And I think that's a good first step before you pick anyone, or before you actually start dating someone.
For me, I just wanted to bring up a passage that I thought was pretty on the nose, and it comes from 1 Thessalonians 4:3-8. So I'm going to read that. And I'm going to preface by saying, like, the quote unquote purity culture of like really elevating this like virginity before you getting married. Like, there's people take that to the extreme in a bad way, and it's unhealthy. And we've seen that through things like I Kissed Dating Goodbye, which was like a really intense book that distorted a lot of what purity was. But I do want to bring up what it says in Scripture in 1 Thessalonians 4:3. It says, "It is God's will that you should be sanctified, that you should avoid sexual immorality, that each of you should learn to control your own body in a way that is holy and honorable, not in passionate lust like the pagans who do not know God, and that in this matter no one should wrong or take advantage of a brother or sister. The Lord will punish all those who commit such sins, as we told you and warned you before. For God did not call us to be impure, but live a holy life. Therefore, anyone who rejects this instruction does not reject a human being, but God, the very God who gives you his Holy Spirit." That's pretty intense. And what I think it's saying, it sounds really like, like it's intense, like, oh, don't do any sexual immorality or else otherwise God's going to punish you. But I think what it comes down to is there's a tendency to believe that, hey, if this feels right, if this feels good for my body, then it has to be right. Like, if I'm feeling these urges to want to go further with this girl than just making out, if it feels like so good to like do it, then it has to be right. And we know in other aspects of our life, this is not true. We know that eating a ton of junk food all the time, even though it feels good at the moment, it's not right for you. Just lying on the couch and watching Netflix all day, it might feel good, but we know that it's not right. And we kind of like have that understanding. But when it comes to our sexual desires, our urges, we might say, no, but this has to be right. Like, this has to be what I want. And my question to you is there ever anything that is, when it comes to what is true, what is right in your life, can something other than your bodily urges tell you what's right? Are you able to like restrict what you what your body says like what your body wants to do versus like what someone else would say is better. And I say that because this passage is saying, if you know God, your desire to please him, to be in relationship with him, is bigger than what your bodily urges would want you to do. He's saying there's something besides what I'm feeling that is telling me what I should be doing. Like, and that is the biggest, a big marker of what it means to be in relationship with God. Can I be in control of my body so that I can do something else? Like I'm trying to think of the best way to say this, but I think that's like the biggest takeaway. It's like, if your body tells you something's right, like, are you able to negotiate with yourself? Are you able to be in control with yourself? Because you have the Holy Spirit in you that is able to tell you what is holy and honorable and good. Am I perfect at this? Absolutely not. Like, I'm so poor at this concept. And I have failed multiple times, so many times throughout my years, even now as a 30-something-year-old. But like I know that I'm going to have this battle all the time until I die. It's just my body's going to tell me that something is right, and I need to find something else to fight it with. If you don't have anything else to fight it with, you're just gonna, you're just gonna give in. And so that's what it means to have a relationship with God. Like, you have another thing on your, an angel on your shoulder. You have someone else that you're in relationship with that can give you another way. And if you don't feel like you're in control, then I don't know. That's just not a good way to live life. And so, pleasing God is so important. And I find that for youth, it's really hard to convince them that, hey, like, staying, like, being pure and not having sex or not going too far is like not right. I'm trying to think of the best way to do it, but it would either be that, like, knowing what feels right versus what is right, or this idea that, like, physical intimacy should rise with emotional intimacy and spiritual intimacy and commitment. I mean, that happens through commitment. Like, as you're growing in emotional intimacy, physical intimacy is likely going to increase. But if you just have immense physical intimacy in the beginning while emotional intimacy is catching up, you're kind of like hot wiring in the body, like something that is not supposed to have been that way. I would say that physical intimacy, when coupled with proportionate emotional intimacy, that's when it's the best. And so, don't rob yourself of having physical intimacy without the emotional intimacy, but let it grow along with it. Now, I'm not saying, like, there's ways of wisdom to make this happen, but one of the clearest markers is just like, save the most obvious form of physical intimacy, which is sex, for when you're fully committed in a marriage relationship. If you can't wait, then I don't know if it's once again, it's that like fight between what feels right versus what is right. And so, anyway, that's all I want to say about that. And I think there's a lot more that we can talk about that. You can feel free to ask more questions if you want, but at this point, we answered the 3 main questions. It was like, what was our biggest dating mistakes? What qualities should we look for in ourselves when we're dating? And how do we honor God if we start dating? And so we talked about all those things. And if you guys have any questions about this or other things pertaining to dating, then you can feel free to put it in the link, and we can answer them. So I'll give you guys like a minute if you want to put more questions in, and then I'm going to share the screen and we're going to go through those questions together. So if you guys can think of questions, mentors and mentees, anyone here, in terms of what you want to hear us talk about, put it in the link. I'll give you guys like a minute.
You screen sharing?
Mm-hmm. Hey. I don't know if I should be offended by that question or
No.
like what could you possibly have seen in Jesse?
But they had like a nice smiley face there.
They did. They did.
It wasn't an LOL
LOL.
at the end.
What attracted you to Jesse? Oh my god. All right. We'll start answering questions. Feel free to put more in if you want to talk about it. How old should I be to start dating?
I mean, I don't want to put an age exactly, because I think emotional maturity it varies from person to person. I think I don't know. Maybe like late high school, early college. I just feel like it's unavoidable at that age.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be. Like yeah, it's really hard to not have relationships when you're in high school for sure. But I would say, you're old enough when you can look at the person in front of you and care about who they are and what their future is and who they're becoming more than just how they make you feel. If you care about what their interests are, if you care about what makes them happy and what makes them sad, more than, oh, this girl can kiss me, this girl can like give me physical intimacy. Like, the difference between love and lust is just finding enjoyment in the person that they are rather than what they can give you. And if you feel that, you can do that, and you can be responsible. I don't know. Many people will say, hey, you shouldn't be dating unless you're going to get married to this person like within a certain amount of time, within a year. I don't know. There's some wisdom in that for sure. But the reality is that like guys and girls are going to come your way, and you kind of need to know for yourself what's kind of like what kind of personal thresholds should I reach before I should even be considering being in a relationship with another person. So I think that emotional intelligence, the being able to love someone for who they are, those are good signs to know that you're getting there.
I have a lot of questions.
Okay. Oh, good. Okay. Cool. How extreme should separation be after a breakup?
I think it depends on, okay, so I feel like there's almost like two different types of dating there's like the younger, like we said, like maybe more immature, but maybe not as serious dating, where you're in high school and you like a guy for like 3 to 6 months, and then you guys break up. And then there's like, dating in your 20s where you're really serious, couple years. For the more serious ones, I have pretty much cut off communication, at least for a few years after I broke up. Like my high school boyfriend and I are actually on like friendly speaking terms, but there's still always like a degree of separation. Like we're not going to be besties and we're not going to talk all the time.
Hmm.
But especially right after a breakup, like it's just gonna linger if you don't like cut them off. You don't talk to any of your
I've had 9 girlfriends before Deborah, and I don't talk to any of them. I very much go out of my way to not talk to any of them. Not because we ended badly or poorly. We ended pretty amicably for most of them, but it just, I don't want to put myself in a situation where that can get messy.
Mm.
I think it's just unwise, but
yeah.
There are times where you can't avoid it. You know, you might be a part of the same church or whatnot, and that's understandable. You kind of you roll with those punches, you kind of live with it.
Mm-hmm. I also see people kind of like, especially when the breakup is hard or they don't want to break up, they try to skip too quickly to the let's just be friends.
Yeah,
you know, like, can we still be friends? Like during the breakup conversation.
I think that's what it is.
And it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Maybe if I were to join the same church as one of my exes today, and it's been years, then I might be okay.
Yeah.
Like they've moved on, I moved on. They have kids. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. And so, yeah, but don't neglect that right after period where you need to have that break, that clean break. I think that's the big thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it okay to go on dates with people in dating apps, social groups, etc.? Coffee meets bagel.
I feel like there's different types of dating apps, but
yeah,
I think it's okay. I think it's the
Grindr.
Yeah. Grindr's for gay people. Yeah, but I think the same rules apply, right? Like when you go on a date with someone for the first time through a dating app, same thing, like ask God for his opinion, you know, do the work yourself.
Can I enjoy this person for who they are?
Yeah. And then kind of and then also always like introduce them into your social circles if you feel like this person is someone that you really want to spend more time with, because if you're not meeting them within a social circle, then you don't really know how they behave with other people around. You don't know how they behave, you know, outside of them being on date mode, which is really important to see. So
right.
I would just say that. I'm not sure what social groups means, but I'm guessing that means like group dates or.
I mean, in general, like online dating.
Yeah.
Is a great thing, if assuming you are in a right place. Mm-hmm. And having accountability and stuff is super important too. So.
You want me to answer this question?
Yeah. What could have possibly attracted you to me?
I mean, there's like the initial attraction of
my long hair.
Yeah, your long hair and I feel like it's just, especially since we met at a worship conference and you were on my team first. I led worship first. But I just felt like we had been leading worship together forever. Like it was just so easy. It wasn't awkward. We had this like, I just felt really comfortable around him, like right away. Like he kind of like got me. It's a little bit hard to describe, but I think that's just like initial, like the sparks in the beginning kind of attraction. But the deeper things happened, especially when I like compared him to like my previous experiences. Like he at that point had already been working on himself and his relationship with God, and so I didn't feel like I wasn't like, hey, are you like I was never like worried about him seeking God for himself. He also met like Luke and Rebecca right away, and like at least like him and Luke were like buddies right away. And so I was like, oh, like he gets along with my family. And I saw him like ministering to people at the conference. I don't know. It was just like a lot of the things that I had experienced poorly in my other ones, like he kind of was like the opposite. pretty quickly right away. So I mean, that was good.
Yeah.
Which I guess kind of goes to the next question.
Mm-hmm.
If you could do it again, would you still date the people you dated before you got married?
No, I wouldn't. I would rather just be with Deborah. Like, why would that be? Like, people talk about experience being like a good thing. Why would I want experience with someone that's not the one I love most in this world? Like, I would much rather have experience with that. Like, if I could eat 1,000 acai bowls versus 10 blue bowls, I would rather only have blue bowl because it's the best one. And so I made a ton of mistakes and I'm not proud of them. And I would rather Deborah be my first kiss.
Yeah. I'd still date. I'm just kidding. No, I agree. But I would say though that dating the people before I met you helped me appreciate you more though. It did like make it like the comparison, okay. Versus like, what else is out there? But I'm just like, no, I'm not curious at all. Zero curiosity.
Like, I'm not going to have a Costco acai bowl.
Okay. Now we're just talking about acai bowls.
How do you know it's the right time to break up with someone?
When the thought of marrying them freaks you out and you don't want to.
Oof. I'm trying to think of another red flag. Put them in different social groups that you're in. And if you're embarrassed, if you're uncertain, if you're fearful, especially close friends, church friends, family, if you're embarrassed or anything with those are kind of signs that you kind of have to think about something. Not necessarily that it's the right time to break up, but you kind of exploring that path of like, why aren't I proud of this person? Why am I not happy to share this person with this group of friends?
That's good.
Just a few more questions. These are, we'll go quickly on these. Practical ways of preventing physical temptation while dating.
Try not to be alone in the house. Try not to be alone in a car. Have a curfew. Have accountability. Have like people in your life that you'll text or talk to, who you feel like can hold you accountable in ways.
Yeah, someone to talk to about everything is important.
Yeah.
And I would say that the boundaries that you set, the physical boundaries that you set, it might be, we're not going to make out, or it's like, we're not going to be alone in your room and on your bed. We're never going, like if you be very specific about your fences, then it'll be harder for you to go past them. But what I realize is if you're loose about your boundaries and you say, I mean, like whatever, like you'll realize that your boundaries will slowly grow and it'll become like, oh, it'll be just 3 people in the house. And then it's like, oh, we're alone. Oh, well, let's just make the most of it. Oh, let's, watch this movie and put a blanket on, turn the lights off. Like you slowly start to like broaden these boundaries because you haven't like set hard boundaries for yourself. Mm-hmm. So if you want to prevent it, if you want to not put yourself in regrettable situations, be very specific about the boundaries that you set and make sure that you and your significant other are aware of them. How do I fight feelings of envy when I see other couples around me?
I'm guessing this is like if you're single.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I would say it's much, 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 much better to be single than to be in a bad relationship. Mm-hmm. So you're not really like being in a relationship is not inherently better than being single with like at all. So, and also of course, from what you see on the outside, especially what you see on social media, like it's all fake. And and trying to be in a relationship out of envy or out of loneliness is a really good way to get yourself in a bad relationship, and then you'll be like, oh, this is worse than being single. Like, being single is amazing. You have so many things you can do, and yeah. And so just don't be tricked by social media relationships, and know that being in a bad relationship is actually worse than being single.
Yeah. And I would say don't underestimate the power of good friendship. If you have a couple good friends, like, I don't know, I think that's more valuable than a potential fling or
For sure.
mediocre relationship.
Yeah, invest in your friendships.
Yeah.
During this time.
Be a better friend. Last one. Is there a proper way to break up with someone without both sides hurting badly?
A proper way? Write a letter. Just kidding. I mean,
there's going to be hurt.
Yeah.
There's going to be sadness. But I think the thing I'll say, though, is being upfront and honest and clear rather than vague is the best way.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, hey, so I'm, we should just like maybe take a break. I don't know. I feel like I don't, as straightforward as possible how you're feeling, because that ambiguity is just brutal. Mm-hmm. It's like slowly twisting the knife as you're taking it out. It's so just be honest and straightforward.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't want to hurt the person by breaking up with them, but they end up hurting them by being a bad person to them, like for a while, like being mean or, ghosting them or being withdrawn. And those things are hurtful too. And so it's sometimes by the time you break up, like there's already been a lot of like instances of like you hurting this person because you were already like on the way to breaking up with them. So the sooner you're honest with them, I think the better.
Cool. All right. That was a lot. It's 11:55. Thank you guys for hanging on. And I didn't see all these.
People said 30 for the age of dating. Is that what it was?